So, time's finally come. Let's talk about Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella. I am not a person who likes to talk about things I absolutely dislike. I prefer to focus on the positives. And I think that's something I'm going to hold myself to. I am not just going to spend this video talking negatively about the show, because there are positives, and there are a lot of positives, and I want to make sure that those positives get their time. But I also think there's a core problem with this show, at least for me personally, that kind of stopped me from enjoying it as much as I wanted to. And I want to make that clear. I really did want to like this show, but I will start with the positives before I start talking about why I didn't like Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella. If you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I just renamed all the channel. Big rebrand. Big me rebrand as well. Who expected that? Not me. If you want to see some more videos, I do reviews, I do chaos, I do fun theatre-y things. So if you want to see more, please consider hitting subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it, because it helps. And also comment what you think of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was okay? Because all these opinions are valid, because theatre is what? Subjective! Let's get on to the video. I am going to close this window. I have closed this window. So it's been quite a while since I've seen Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella. I saw it back in September, right in the middle of my very long YouTube break. And I was intrigued, you know, I'd won the lottery, I had pretty decent seats, I was excited. I said I'll start with the positives. I think, visually, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella is amazing. Starting with the set design, I think all these sets are really beautiful, they play with what they need to, and I love the contrast between Cinderella's home and like the royalty of it and like the town. I think it's very like storybook-esque, which I think really works with the Cinderella idea and, you know, harks back to what they're adapting. And then going from that, the costumes as well, all these luxurious ball gowns, and it really gives you that kind of sense of what they're going for with like the town and everyone looking beautiful and perfect. It really does. And that contrast with the design of what Carol Fletcher's wearing as Cinderella, a kind of like ripped, torn apron, and the kind of like gothy, emo-esque makeup. It's a really nice contrast, and I really love all these costumes. And I think that strength of the cast, you know, really makes this show worth seeing. I think if you're going to this for like a good performance, you're going to get it. If you're going for a good visual, you're going to get it. And, like, it does build up the spectacle quite well. You know, we can talk about the massive spectacle of this. You know, they stage part of it in the round, where the stage and part of the front of the audience all just turns round, so they're doing it in the round. The lavish sets, some of the really good choreography. I really love the sequence that they do with Bad Cinderella, a song that I'm not particularly a fan of. I think it's staged really well with this mob coming to get her. And if you're interested and you haven't seen the show, I would recommend watching the West End live performance, because I know there's a couple of like technical difficulties with it, but you do kind of get the sense of like the choreography of the show and like how it does really work. However, my problem with the show is the show. And this is a problem that I have been feeling with a lot of recent Cinderella adaptations. Because when you're doing a show like Cinderella that has so many of these adaptations and so much that has already been tread upon, you need to find an angle. And I think this show finds too many angles. It becomes a thing where I kind of wish they'd stuck to one idea and gone with it. Because there are a lot of really good ideas in here for a new version of Cinderella. We have the idea of the town and doing a Cinderella in a perfect world where everyone's perfect except for Cinderella. We have the idea of doing a bad Cinderella, a Cinderella who is more rebellious. You have the idea of doing a horror Cinderella even towards the end of Act 1, where they go through like the plastic surgery elements. You have all of these really good ideas for separate Cinderella stories, but they try and do all of them. And that ends up making the show feel a little bit muddled, in my opinion. I really wish that we could have seen more of the horror element. That was one of my favourite sequences, where they light the bottom of the stage. They give this really eerie feeling. And Cinderella goes through plastic surgery and you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And then that's completely dropped and nothing matters, and that they meant nothing. Cinderella just went through massive plastic surgery for no build-up. It's just completely dropped, and you're like, oh, she's changed her entire face. No repercussions for that? No. And then you look at the towel element, and I really like the idea and some of the song lyrics where they like talk about the town, and they're talking about how they get in the plastic surgery and everything, and how they like are forced to build up this image of perfection, but it feels very surface level. They never really dive any deeper into it. Whereas this is a topic that you could really link to capitalism and the ideas of like how this corrupts a society. There's so much here that they could really dive into and really look into. However, it only just touches the surface because it's trying to do too much. When we get into Act 2, there are a lot of changes to the original story. It's nice, I like it, but it could go further. And this is why I really struggled with Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella, because I can see a really good Cinderella story in there. I can see every element in there that would build this amazing show. However, it just misses it. And I think the other thing that really made me struggle with the show is that I just didn't engage with the music as much as I wanted to. Now, everything I've said before is subjective in its own right. You know, story elements and how you personally relate to them and how you wish you could see the build up more. But I think songwriting and enjoying a song is even more subjective. And I know a lot of people who really enjoyed the music of this show, but one example that I give when I'm talking about this show is Cinderella's ballads and Cinderella's personal songs in the show. She has two big numbers in Act 2. One where she's just been kind of like rejected by the prince because he doesn't really recognise her. And another one a little bit later called Far Too Late. The problem with both of these songs, especially Far Too Late, is it doesn't build to anywhere. A song is a story in itself. A story needs to rise and then it ends. You need to start the song in one place and finish the song in another place. I'm not sure if Far Too Late does this. Far Too Late starts and ends pretty much exactly the same. There's a really lovely build in the middle that just goes through the instrumentals, but then it goes back to the same chorus that Kaya Fletcher sung before. There's no change in what she's singing. Brings me back to my main problem with this show, that it doesn't build. It doesn't go into what it's thinking about enough. And I think it's just really annoying when you're listening to a song and it starts to build instrumentally and then just goes back to being the same. I think that song just perfectly executes what my problem is with this show. I wish it could have some more workshops. I wish it could have honed in the real issue that it wanted to tackle. Did it want to do a horror Cinderella? Did it want to focus more on the capitalism of it? And you can mix these two things together. However, it doesn't really feel like it wants to tell that story. And I think it doesn't really know what its audience is. Is this show designed for children? Because there was a lot of children in the audience for this showing. For the showing I was sat next to a child. And yet all these men are on stage and, like, basically nothing. Like, flexing and being, like, very weirdly sexual. And you're like, is this show for children? I don't think it is. But then it's marketed for being a family show, and it's not really, it doesn't feel like a family show. Why don't you do a horror Cinderella designed for older people? I mean, it doesn't have to be for families. Of course, that is a good market to tap into, because parents will bring their kids, that's more ticket money for you, and, you know, in a time where the West End is struggling a little bit, that's always good. But I really do wish we could have lent into that, and you could really tell this story as a show that you take your kids to. I mean, if I had kids, I probably wouldn't take them to this. So the question is, who is this for? It doesn't feel like it's for me, because it's not really going far enough into the questions that I wanted to answer. It doesn't feel like it's for families, because it feels wildly inappropriate for children. So is the problem that it's just trying to aim for such a general audience that it doesn't really match up to its full potential? Because that's the thing about this show. There is so much potential in it. There is so much potential. And yet it misses it. And I love a lot of what this show gives. But I'm just sitting there in my seat thinking, I want more. There isn't enough to chew on. The question is, will you enjoy this show? And I think maybe, you know, I think there's an audience for any type of show, whether it be, you know, the greatest thing of all time or something designed for something else entirely. You know, I went to see Bring It On, a show that I didn't think I was going to enjoy. However, I would never hold up Bring It On and something like Come From Away in the same place, because they're designed for two different audiences. One is, you know, a bit more emotional, a bit more of an artful piece, and the other one is a fun show about cheerleaders. But the thing is with Cinderella, I'm not sure which one it wants to be. It's so close to being that kind of like artsy, really interesting take on capitalism and perfection and body image and all of these issues that are like rising more and more with the age of social media. It could be a really good social commentary, but it doesn't really seem like it wants to focus on that. It seems like it wants to be more of the general audience thing. However, with all these ideas bubbling up underneath it, it kind of feels like a missed opportunity. I don't know. I think this show is just one of those ones that just sadly, it isn't for me. And that's fine. Not every show is going to be for me. And if you go and you enjoy this show, because there is a lot to enjoy, as I said, the set design, the costume, the acting, the singing, there is a lot to enjoy. But for me personally, I didn't really like Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella. But I'm really interested to see what you think. Did you see Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cinderella? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Let me know in the comments down below. And remember that every opinion is valid, you know? I may have just ranted about why I don't like it for, however long minutes, but this is what the joy is about this community. And art in general is that it is so subjective and so beautiful that you can focus on these different things and find something different in a show to someone else. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. I have a spinning chair again. This is the worst. I am just so like, whee! I can't get anything done. See you next time. Bye!